Thank you for this opportunity, Uma and the team, for giving me a platform to share my story. And also, I like listening to all these diverse experiences. Some of them were so moving, and some others were very inspiring in their own way. So I'm glad to kind of share the space with all you wonderful women. At present, I'm a senior technical program manager with Tango, and I would love to share my story of three professional life skills, as I call them, that I have learned, if I may add, the hard way over the past 10 years of my career. And well, if you haven't caught me yet, my name is Dimple. I have worked at companies of varying sizes and scope, right from like a 30 people startup called Zinrello to a big tech like Meta. Tango, where I'm right now, is a 250 people mid-sized company in payments and gift card space, where I'm reporting directly to the CTO. So that has been a very different experience and kind of learning in its own right. Pretty much a conventional path into product and program here. Started off as a developer and soon enough realized I enjoy the big picture more than being at my code, kind of contrary to what Sonal said earlier. And that's how I moved from development into product and program with JCPenney, Meta, and Tango. I have to say, a lot of these skills, they were not new to me when I learned them. But it's only when I actually went through the experiences that it really made sense. So kind of having a bookish knowledge of what something is, but really kind of living through it kind of resonated differently. The first one is managing up. I had heard about it, but I did not really know what it meant. And when I read the bookish definition, I'm like, okay, how do I even incorporate this? Like, what does it really mean? The second one, like we've all been saying in different flavors, being my biggest cheerleader. Meta is very well known for having a bottom-up culture, and this is where this particular aspect really kind of nailed down in my head. And the third one is an experiment that I'm doing right now, kind of maintaining a scratch pad of my own experiences and seeing how that helps to better identify my own strengths and opportunities down the road. And I can share more about that in a couple slides. So yeah, the first one is managing up. There was this time at Meta when I received really discouraging feedback from my manager, and it came as a surprise in many ways because I'd been a good employee across my career up until then, and there were a lot of kind of difference in perceptions is what I realized after having got that manager, sat over it over a weekend, and digest what really happened. I realized that I had not been doing a good job of really keeping my manager educated on what I was doing at my job. He was new to the team. I had not really given him enough visibility into the complexities of my project or the challenges with my kind of cross-functional stakeholders and how I've been navigating them, not sharing enough highlights with him. And all to sum it up, he had a different perception of what the reality was and had a different version of what was on the ground. And it was only through this experience that I realized what managing up is. Nobody really told me, but this is part of my job to keep my manager and the upward chain educated at all times. It's part of my job to regularly check in with my manager what's on top of mind for them so that I can align what I am doing with his concerns to be able to really make it easier for him to understand how I'm adding value or making an impact. Also, this this episode really empowered me to give feedback to my own manager. I could have very well sat on that discouraging feedback and kind of just told myself that, oh, I will do it better next time. This is what I've learned, blah, blah, blah. But instead, I chose to do another touch base with him and call out that there are some aspects of the feedback that I did not agree with. There were some aspects that were true, but then some aspects I did not agree with. And here's why I think the gaps are, and here's how I would like to solve them. Also, the manager had given me feedback a couple minutes before going into a call with me. So I did not have enough time to really process what was going to come up. So another piece of feedback that I gave in return is I would love for him to share anything with me ahead of time so that I'm able to like prepare myself for a conversation on some topics. all these kind of back and forth or candid exchanges rather really set us up for a very transparent relationship going forward, establishing trust both ways. And soon enough, I was given a really interesting project, complex project across the company, and that resulted in my promotion and so on and so forth. So this managing up episode really set me up for the second part, which is being my biggest cheerleader. I know that I am doing something well, and I know when I'm not doing it well, and I'm open to getting help on it. So going into meta, um, it's a very popular notion that no matter how successful you've been in the past, you just have some sort of imposter syndrome. And that when I'm saying meta, it's just because that's my experience, but I know it's true for many other companies or kind of places that people go to. Um, for me, that imposter syndrome was also took a different flavor, which is, was that too easy? When I got the interview with Meta, I was like, oh, I've put on my heart and soul into this. This is the first big tech that I've ever interviewing with. I want to give it my best. I don't know what I'm getting into, but let's give it a shot. And once I cracked the interview, and on my day one, I was like, huh, that felt too easy. Was it just in my head that it was complex? So the difference is being able to realize and acknowledge the strengths that I bring versus kind of downplaying the success just because it felt probably easy. Probably it was not as complicated as I'd imagined it to be. Uh, Second aspect of being my biggest advocate is learning how to balance listening with speaking up. There were some leaders at previous companies who really encouraged me to speak up more. And being an ambivert, I naturally gravitate towards first listening and then speaking when I have something to share or when I have a question versus just generally being out there all the time. So being able to like really tune my own personality to make myself heard while also being in the listening mode has been helpful to establish some kind of candid relationships with coworkers in general, especially in a role like product and program, where a lot of the part of the job is um, talking with people. The third one is the experiment that I am talking about. So I always struggled with finding useful content at performance reviews or interview or during interview preparation. Because when I'm like sitting and trying to think about specific examples or incidents or highlights from my past jobs, projects, I'm like, oh, did that ever happen to me? Did I ever have a difficult conversation with a colleague? Or did my project ever have a, a hard go no go decision just before launch? Some of these might sound obvious and some of these might like stick with you after they've happened, but I'm realizing that during the course of a project or just a job in general, there are so many nuanced experiences that we go through that probably don't stick around in our heads because we're so in the moment at the time to like keep the train moving. So the experiment that I'm running right now is having a Google Doc in front of me open 24/7 on my work laptop and just doing a real-time thought dump of whenever something happens during a typical work day, putting it in that Google Doc as a quick bullet point. This is what happened. This is how I handled it, reacted it. This is the feedback I got. What a snapshot of that couple seconds or couple minutes, so to speak. And I'm already seeing the value from it. I'm able to commit something to memory that otherwise would not be possible to keep it in my own head, and also kind of pull from this inventory of experiences that I'm collating when the time comes, like for performance review or interview preparation, or generally just going through that list and feeling like, I have indeed handled some interesting challenges or interesting kind of achievements in the past. So I'm hoping that some of these kind of learnings help you guys as well. And I would love to see how any of it resonates so with you all. And before we wrap up, I would also wanted to, like, in the spirit of kind of blending our work persona with our personal life persona, the the theme that Dora started an hour ago, there are some kind of questions or food for thought that have been on my mind that I thought this would be a good place to share them. Like we encourage ourselves to have a really strong personality at work, but then how are we bringing that into our personal lives? Because with cultural stigmas or in general, the societal expectations sometimes makes it hard to be our own strong personality in our outside of work. So one challenge is bringing your whole self to work, but there's also another challenge of bringing your actual self from the work back home and kind of setting yourself up for success in that space as well. And the other is, I think probably to what Krishna said, maybe the first time she shared her story so candidly with us. And I think most of us are strangers to her. So why do we feel so easy to share difficult stories with strangers versus with our friends and family? Are we really supporting the people that we think we know and without a judgmental mindset as such that should make it easier for them to be as transparent with them as they are with people that they do not know. Sweet. Thank you again for this opportunity. And I cruised through the presentation hoping that we have some time for really talking with each other because I really, really want to hear just general thoughts from people.